The United States has announced murder charges against the former Cuban president Raul Castro.
The indictment piles further pressure on Havana for political change and marks a new low in relations between the longtime Cold War rivals.
Well, the charges relate to a 1996 incident in which Cuban fighter jets shot down two small planes operated by Miami-based exile group Brothers to the Rescue, which carried out humanitarian missions. Raul Castro was the defense minister at the time.
As alleged in the indictment, Raul Castro and 5 co-defendants participated in a conspiracy that ended with Cuban military aircraft firing missiles at those civilian planes and killing 4 Americans. Those are the allegations returned by a federal grand jury. My message today is clear. The United States and President Trump does not and will not forget its citizens.
President Trump called it a very big day for Cubans, saying the U.S. was freeing up the country.
We have Cuba on our mind. Very important. Been a lot of problems for a lot of years, and this was I think it was a very big moment for people that, not only Cuban Americans, but people that came from Cuba that want to go back to Cuba, people that want to see their family in Cuba. I think this is a very big day, very important day.
Now 94, Raul Castro last appeared in public in Havana earlier this month. And Washington says they expect him to surrender or be taken into custody by some means. And they expect him to face the charges in a U.S. court one day.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel rejected the charges against the former leader. In a post on X in Spanish, he called them politically motivated and lacking any legal foundation.
All right, let's get to Simon Marks. He's been following developments for CNN. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. So, Simon, tell us about the significance of this indictment against the former Cuban leader, given how he's not even in U.S. custody.
He's not in U.S. custody, Yasmine, and he is very unlikely to be handed over to the United States by Cuba. That is certainly off the table. But in Little Havana, in Miami, where these indictments were unveiled, Cuban exiles believe it's significant because they think there is finally now a move on by an American government to try and secure justice.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel rejected the charges against the former leader. In a post on X in Spanish, he called them politically motivated and lacking any legal foundation.
All right, let's get to Simon Marks. He's been following developments for CNN. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. So, Simon, tell us about the significance of this indictment against the former Cuban leader, given how he's not even in U.S. custody.
He's not in U.S. custody, Yasmine, and he is very unlikely to be handed over to the United States by Cuba. That is certainly off the table. But in Little Havana, in Miami, where these indictments were unveiled, Cuban exiles believe it's significant because they think there is finally now a move on by an American government to try and secure justice over those events back in 1996 that led to the deaths of 3 Americans. The Trump administration believes it's significant because they believe it provides a fresh pressure point as they try to persuade the Cuban authorities to come to some kind of an agreement about the island's future with the White House. And they, of course, have in mind possibly the kind of military operation that we all saw play out in Venezuela at the beginning of the year. That lightning military strike on Caracas that saw U.S. armed forces spirit away President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. They are now in New York awaiting trial on narco-terrorism charges. Republican lawmakers in Florida said today if that kind of an operation did the job in Venezuela, it might do the job in Cuba as well.
We should not take anything off the table. I mean, the same thing happened to Maduro should happen to Raul Castro. But I'm not going to get ahead of whatever the Trump administration wants to do.
They're 90 miles from our shores. We just learned recently that they have at least 300 drones in their possession. That actually puts, excuse me, the entire southeast of the United States at risk because these drones have ranges up to 600 miles. And so anybody who thinks that Cuba is not a threat, they have been always a threat.
There's no question that this move puts fresh pressure on Havana. The authorities there said there is no legal basis for the charges against Raul Castro and said this move to indict him by the Justice Department is representative of what an authority, what an official described as the arrogance and frustration of the Trump administration.
Well, Simon, the charges against Raul Castro come alongside comments we heard from the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who urged Cubans to demand new leadership that will chart a new course in relations with Washington. So the question is, why is the U.S. eyeing Cuba now, and what's the end game? It almost sounds like they have a checklist, a to-do list.
Well, they do in a sense, because, of course, Cuba, they would argue, is within the Western Hemisphere. And as the Trump administration has laid out in its national security strategy, it argues that the Western Hemisphere is America's unique sphere of influence. And what President Trump is all about in foreign and defense policy terms is resolving issues that in many cases, he argues, should have been resolved a long time ago. He has said it would be an honor to go down in history as the president who finds a way of liberating Cuba from the current government that he accuses of essentially being a communist kleptocracy. And there are figures within the Trump administration, of course, Marco Rubio principal among them, the son of Cuban parents, for whom this mission to effect change in Cuba is deeply personal. And this move today indicates just how seriously the Trump administration is taking what it believes is its opportunity to bring about that change.
Mr. Marks, always good talking to you. Simon Marks, reporting for CNA from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.